to Inbox Segment Part 12, where I'll try and answer all your questions. I've had a few holidays, so there's been plenty of videos and plenty of comments to answer. Thanks to all the kind comments on the minimum QRP ebook. It sold over 1,200 copies, well exceeding expectations. A few people asked if there are many circuits or projects. Not in this particular book. The book is a bit different from my videos in that it's got a lot more concentration on operating antennas and equipment selection. Not on how to build the equipment itself, but how to look for a circuit or commercially manufactured QRP rig or kit that would be suitable for your style of QRP operating. Richard S. commented about various types of antennas for kites. I agree, you get to a point of diminishing returns, where when you make the antenna so long, its radiation pattern breaks up. That's likely to happen if the wire gets to longer than say 5/8 of a wavelength. Although if the wind is blowing a certain way and the wire is sloping and you want to make contacts in a particular direction, then maybe you might be lucky and some of the multiple lobes from your long wire vertical antennas might just hit the right spot and propagate to the other station. That's particularly likely for relatively close-in stations within about 500 or 1,000 kilometres. Nathan JR wanted a link to my beat frequency oscillator, which was mentioned on a video I did reviewing a J-car receiver. That receiver only did AM and needed a BFO to pick up SSB signals. There is a circuit on my website, I think it's called Signal Frequency BFO, but really any RF oscillator that can be varied over the desired frequency range will work. Adam Earl asked about my portable shelter, as you haven't seen it in very many recent videos. You know the one, the beach shelter that collapsed quite small but expanded to provide some good shelter against the harsh sun. You're right, it had spent some time in the house because I had an accident with it during a time of high winds that caused me not to be able to fold it down to its most compact size. I could only bend it around a little bit, but not enough, so it's actually quite bulky to transport. The shelter is even quite hard to collapse, even if it is okay. If you search on YouTube, you'll find a lot of people had similar problems, and there's even videos telling you how to collapse the shelter. Unfortunately with me, it's a bit like a Rubik's Cube, and I haven't been able to get the knack. Probably not helped by the shelter's frame getting distorted in some high wind conditions. I suppose you can't expect much more than that for $12. By Almond, in the video on tuning for maximum brightness, that is the one with the little ferrite toroid and the LED put in the antenna line, wanted to know about the L-match I'm using. Yep, it is one that I rebuilt, but you can find the circuit on my website, VK3YE.com. An L-match has just two components, maybe three if you include the switch, to switch the taps on the coil. So you'll find hundreds of designs on the web which will all be suitable. On the recent video of a super simple receiver for 40 metres, Trilon wanted to know what alternatives you could use for the MPF 102 FET. It's not critical since most small FETs have good RF performance, at least at HF frequencies. Consider something like a 2N3819, 2N5484, 2N5485, etc. I still get a few comments on my look through old Dick Smith catalogues. It may be of interest to some that Dick Smith Electronics is now under administration. Dick Smith stores are now open, but for how much longer I don't know. Meanwhile, J-Car has put in cheeky advertisements, inviting landlords who currently let to Dick Smith to consider renting to a J-Car store instead. A big shout out to Adam Augustin, who helped with the videoing for one of my previous videos, the one reviewing the Soda Beams antenna tuner. Hope you enjoy these videos and also think about getting a ham radio license. You're also welcome to drop around to QRP on the Bay, held in 2 weeks' time, not far from here. David Wilcox, yes you're right, you could use cardboard tubing or plastic tubing instead of the glass I used for the CW filter. Indrid Cold wanted to know whether AM is still used on 10 metres. There's not very much activity around here in VK on AM, but if there is, especially when the propagation is favourable, try around 29 to 29.1 MHz. Apparently AM is a bigger thing on 10 metres in North America. In a video I did where I mentioned that you could convert an old clock radio to cover 160 metres, Kenneth Watson wanted to know how you actually did it. Have a look at some of my older videos. I think it was about 5 years ago, but there is a detailed video done on my deck of how to convert a portable AM radio to cover 160 metres. It was basically tweaking the local oscillator so it covered a slightly higher frequency and peaking the front end for maximum signal on 1.8 MHz. For those in Melbourne, the next QRP by the Bay is right here at Victory Park, Chelsea Beach. It's in 2 weeks' time, Saturday, February 6, starting 3 p.m. Come along if you're interested in homebrew, radio and electronics construction, whether you're an amateur or not. It's easy to get to. There's parking over there and a train station at the end of the street. Make sure you bring one of your projects or equipment, so we've got lots to talk about. A good response to modifying the Pixie or making a terrible rig slightly less appalling. Could you use multiple crystals? Yes, you can. If they're the same frequency, you put them in parallel to make what's called a super VXO. If you put it in series with a tuning capacitor, you'll get about double the tuning range that you'll get with a single crystal. Or if your crystals are different frequencies, do as I suggested and put them on a rotary switch so you can have a selection of different channels. That's useful if dodging interference, or you want to call a station on another frequency. Then there is a suggestion of using a DDS unit along with a Pixie. I suppose you could, but to me that's like putting lipstick on a pig. I find there's a bit of a trend with some QRP builders. They'll start off with a very basic QRP rig that delivers poor inherent RF performance and put all sorts of things like DDSs, Morse keyers, digital displays, all sorts of gimmicks. That's what I call them, gimmicks. They're fine on a better QRP rig, but on a very simple rig like the Pixie, which is intended to be a minimalist rig, it has some severe performance compromises. Putting all these accessories on them won't fix those. Instead, if you're going to use a DDS, I'd suggest using a better quality direct conversion transceiver. One that has a separate received product detector, possibly a diode type, which gives better strong signal performance, one that delivers a bit more transmitter output power, and one with some better audio filtering. Then, when you do put the DDS on it, you'll have a transceiver that's a pleasure to use, and you'll get many more contacts than if you're just using something rudimentary like the Pixie. Pixie has its place, but its place is as a simple QRP rig. Components are cheap enough to build another rig which you can add all your features to. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Tasmania and did that video on the RF quietness. You could hear almost no noise. Anyway, Nigel Holmes wrote to mention that Tasmania is used for the monitoring station run by the Department of Communication, or the ACMA as they are now. Tasmania was also favoured by radio astronomer Grote Reber, who recently passed away. If you are flying into Hobart, keep a lookout for the dish at the Grote Reber Museum. It's not that far from Hobart Airport. Also, if you are in Hobart, make sure you visit Mawson's Hut, which is in the city near Salamanca Markets. In there, you'll find a Spark transceiver and crystal set, which is used in the early Antarctic expeditions. Michael McShawn, I hope I've got the name right, asked about ceramic resonators for 7.16 MHz. That's the one I used in the Pixie to get it to cover lower frequencies. Anyway, if you have a look at my most recent video on the regenerative receiver, I could actually get one of those resonators to go all the way down to 7 MHz. It actually covers 7 to 7.120, which is exactly the frequency range you're after. So yes, it could potentially be useful for the US technician part of 40 metres, as well as other CW frequencies. Regular viewer Bob VE7EZI wanted to know if I'll ever commercialise or make available as kits some of my QRP designs. I must admit it has crossed my mind, but the answer is going to be no. It's a lot of work, and being a lazy bugger, I'm inclined to just produce videos and write books. It requires a lot less time, and there's a lot less hassle with ordering parts, making up circuit boards and the like. Having said that, we do have some great ham radio kit suppliers. like OzQRP, Leon VK2DOB, and mini kits, VK5EME Mark. Just browsing the OzQRP site the other day, I note that Leon has brought out a new kit rig, the MST3. It's SSB and CW as well, which the previous MST rigs didn't do. Also, it's multi-band. With plug-in band modules you can cover 4 bands, 80, 40, 20 and 17 metres. Definitely worth considering, and you can get the instructions on the website. I think my future is more of the same. More videos and more Kindle ebooks. Anyway, that's another inbox segment for now. Ask your questions below and I'll answer them next time. And don't forget minimum QRP. Under US $5, you can search for it on Amazon or VK3YE.com.